Write down what I say. I hereby command Eddard of House Stark, titles, to serve as Lord Regent and Protector of the Realm upon my death, to rule in my stead until my son Joffrey comes of age.
So, not too long ago, I was at my public library, just perusing the free books and movies section where they are getting rid of just the finest of trash. So, of course, I found the first season of Game of Thrones. I watched through Game of Thrones back in the day. I watched through season 7 and 8 as it was coming out. I remembered that this was some of the most disappointing and abysmal TV that I had seen in a while. And probably due to that partially and many other examples, I'm sure, you kind of learn not to get excited for things. So, lesson learned. Finding this season of TV for free pretty much crossed the checkbox of the only reason why or opportunity how I would ever watch the show again would be obviously if I found it for free, because I have absolutely no interest in watching it, especially if I have to fork over money. I took it as an opportunity, as a sign. So my wife and I popped it into our PS4, and we pretty much binged through Game of Thrones Season 1, which, let me specify and preface, I remembered as being the best season of the show. My opinion of the show has not actually changed. I feel as though a huge credit to the show at the time, especially in Season 1, was that it wasn't really full of itself, and it was just trying to write a good story and show that in a comprehensive, legible sort of way. Like, they had set standards within the first season that I believe they ended up continuing further on in the series to a negative. The originality of the first season and the writing of the first season stood out as being some of the best, whereas in later seasons, having progressed after watching the first season and continuing on in the series again, it feels as though they were trying a lot harder, and it was more clear that they were trying hard, if that makes any sense. And I'm sure there's examples that can fall into that throughout the whole series, where I would say there are Game of Thrones things, such as don't get attached to a character because they'll most likely be killed in the next scene, big bombastic sort of endings to the seasons, and I want to say some rather notable stupidity at times. On that note, it gives me the opportunity to talk about the first season and some of my biggest complaints with that season, even regardless of how much I do enjoy that season of TV. Biggest issue right off the bat, the whole season is pretty much introducing you to the main characters of, I won't say the show, because again, people get killed off right and left throughout the whole series. But it's introducing the basic concept, the world, etc. with the first season. And throughout the whole first season, they're really hammering home how dangerous Cersei is potentially. In the background for the moment, because she is just the queen, and I know just the queen, but still. She is still just the queen, but she is working in the background. She is known, especially to Ned and several other peoples, the good guys, quote unquote, to being very dangerous, very manipulative, very shady, let's say. And I'm sure even Robert Baratheon, the king, was more than aware of this, regardless of his alcoholism, his debauchery, what have you. I'm sure he would have had to be clinically handicapped to not notice how dangerous his wife actually is. Robert Baratheon was stabbed, or at least he apparently was stabbed due to his drunkenness by a boar while he's hunting towards the end of the first season. He's on his deathbed, he's dying, he's very aware of this. He makes a point of saying, I don't want any of the, the rosebud or whatever the bud is to alleviate pain and stuff. He's very aware he's dying, that's clear. So he talks to his hand, who in this case is Ned Stark, who is like the second in command, essentially, to the king. He does a lot of the political sort of workings. He kind of stands as like the ambassador for the king, because the king doesn't really want to be a king. He just wants to fuck around and do his own thing. So he's speaking with Ned, and he reveals to him that rather than crowning his oldest child, Joffrey, when that's a whole other can of worms in itself, he wants Ned to become king in Joffrey's place until Joffrey is old enough to take the kingship. This idea is all well and good and well thought out and the best option given Ned's nobility and his honor and everything. But the stupidity comes in when Robert is on his deathbed and sends out his entire small council in order to talk to Ned specifically alone, have Ned write down his orders and his instructions, and have Ned be the only witness to this exchange of power. It makes absolutely no sense for Robert to send out all of the witnesses for him and Ned to have a private conversation about something as important as the future ruler of the kingdom, however temporary that may be. So that alone is already stupid. I refuse to believe that Ned or Robert would think that it was a good idea, that the sheet of paper that Robert signs on his deathbed will hold any sort of weight.
King Robert's seal, unbroken. Lord Eddard Stark is herein named Protector of the Realm, to rule as regent until the heir come of age.
Is this meant to be your shield, Lord Stark? A piece of paper.
On to my next major issue. Ned leaves the room later on. Basically, Robert has been dead, and there is whispers of issues within the family, with the queen, with her children, and all of her loyal subjects and helpers, essentially, that there's going to be some shenanigans. Ned is very aware of this. Ned is one of the more intelligent characters throughout the entirety of the first season, except for obvious examples. Robert Baratheon's brother comes to Ned, and his recommendation to Ned is that they should strike King's Landing, the kingdom, the main place, right now. That he, the younger brother of Robert, is going to become king in place because it's way too dangerous to give the queen any opportunity or any amount of time to get her chess pieces in a row. Basically, they need to strike while everybody's unprepared, and they need to take the kingdom and the kingship and all of that before Cersei has an opportunity to pull any of her bullshit.
He named you Protector of the Realm.
He did.
She won't care. Give me an hour and I can put 100 swords at your command.
And what should I do with 100 swords?
Strike! Tonight while the castle sleeps.
Ned, being a man of honor, even to his negative, to the opposite of his credit, literally to his failure, says no, because Robert's other brother, the older one, is supposed to be next in line for the throne. So Ned disregards this information. Ned says no to the opportunity, the troops, the soldiers, the idea, offensive position and offensive maneuver. And so by the end of the series, as everybody knows, things do not work out to the positive. And with these 2 points within the show, these 2 examples, and what we understand of everybody that knows Cersei, everybody that has witnessed Cersei's kind of shady sort of dealings, people who should be more than aware of the danger of this level of power changing hands and what could potentially happen with the families involved. And that's specifically Ned, because Ned is trying to create a peaceful kingdom. Ned is consistently unwanting any of the power and any of the real, struggles that these people in the higher positions and the higher names and everything have to deal with. He doesn't want these things, but he's essentially shoehorned into them for the opportunity, essentially, to do the right thing for the whole of everybody. And so, because of that position and because of his nobility and his honor, basically, things go poorly for him. Those are really my 2 biggest issues with the first season otherwise, and I understand that these things need to happen just for the story to progress and such. However, I feel as though they could have been done a lot better because there's 2 conflicting issues here. Is the show shows these characters, specifically like Ned and such, and even the animosity that Robert has at times for his wife, it shows it consistently through the season. And so it doesn't make any sense for Robert to be dead and everybody to be like, oh yeah, it's all going to go great. It's going to be a really smooth transition of power. My piece of paper is going to do all the talking for me. There's not going to be any bad blood whatsoever. It's very foolish, just given the wisdom that the characters of the focal point of the season are shown to have in the rest of the season. And so towards the end of the season, in my opinion, because of these major events that need to occur for things to progress, they needed to be better written. They needed to be more well thought out. Things could have happened differently. There could have been more violence. There could have been more of like a struggle. Things could have just been better. Because in my opinion, even for how good the first season is overall with the writing and the characters and all that, it feels like a waste for Ned to be portrayed as such a noble and, I want to say, intelligent strategist and a wise sort of counselor, for him to just kind of fall apart at the end there, because nobody would ever disrespect honor. Nobody would ever do anything too shady, like, you know, come up with some bullshit. Anyways, that's kind of my whole thinking. Maybe I gave you some food for thought today. Just kind of ranting, I suppose. But I do like the first season overall. I think it was a really good season of TV. I'm in like season 7 at this point again, and yeah, it just kind of goes downhill from season 1, in my opinion. Hopefully I gave you some food for thought. Feel free to like, subscribe, all that shit. I'll talk to you later.